Product Iteration and Strategy, prepared for and presented at the 2017 Square One Entrepreneurship Training Program. Square One is a program of the Center for Emerging Technologies. CET is an affiliate of the Cortex Innovation Community. Square One is funded in part by the Missouri Technology Corporation.
I'm going to take a quick survey to see who's in the room here. I want to date myself a little bit. How many in this room have ever played a video game? Keep your hand up. Now, put your hand down if you've never played a video game on a game console. Have you ever played a video game on a game console? On an Xbox, on a PlayStation, or a Wii? Okay, you put your hands down. That's good. So I'm going to go through a couple of things here. One other question. How many of you, either yourself or a family member, has gone through physical therapy? Okay, at least 3/4, maybe the full room. Believe it or not, those three questions are kind of related to my story and our story as a company. So I'm going to go through our company's story and give you the background on our origin, how we experienced some challenges, a pivot that we made, how we learned our way through healthcare, how we learned how to narrow our focus, the acquisition that happened, and then some lessons that we learned, and I'll take Q&A at the end. I plan to talk for about 40 minutes. So to make it a little easier, I brought some visual aids. The early company name was Grispon Design, creator of the world's first fitness game. It was kind of unique at the time. This is 2005 when the Xbox first came out. The only thing on game consoles were shoot 'em up. If you think about those types of games, they're violent, there's guns, there's killing of aliens and zombies and Grand Theft Auto, nothing that was good for you. And the original concept behind creating the world's first fitness game was to create a game that was good for you. The idea was to create something that was focused on an economic buyer that wasn't being targeted. Most of the video games out there were being played by, 1, males, and 2, young males. There was no one focused on the other economic buyer in the home, the female. The female not only didn't use the game console, but they didn't play the games. So why not target that individual with a title? And that's what we did through the first title that we created. What was interesting about that is, so the business model to create a fitness game, or to create really any game, there's 3 players. There's the software developer who creates the software. There's the publisher that spends all the money to market and produce the product. And then there's the platform player, and that would be one of 3 players, right? Microsoft with Xbox, Sony with PlayStation, Nintendo with the Wii. Those 3, developer, publisher, platform, collaborated when it came to sharing revenues. That's important in a minute. But you had to have a publisher in order to get a game out into the marketplace, and you had to have the blessing of Microsoft or Sony or Nintendo. We couldn't find a publisher that would take a risk with us. And so we begged and pleaded with Microsoft and used every leverage that we could. And Microsoft said, we're going to give you a shot. We're going to let you self-publish. Very rare. And we did. And I'm going to give you an example of what a promotional video looked like from us. This was the first fitness game. In fact, we coined the phrase fitness game.
Together as a team, we will build your personalized, your self-fitness program so it is right for your body and mind. I will always challenge you to push a little harder, to be a little more disciplined, and I will be here to help you reach your goals. I know you can do it.
So we're leveraging the animation that we were good at. We're leveraging assets that we created, but we were promoting ourselves. We didn't have a publisher. We didn't have a lot of money, but it was a hit. It was a hit because it was something that was very unique, something that was very different, so it made headlines. We made it to the Wall Street Journal, we made it to the Today Show. It was super exciting, got on the cover of Wired magazine. Super, super great coverage that we got. And we spawned the category. We were the first, but we didn't become the biggest because we didn't have muscle. We didn't have the size, we didn't have the strength. How many know of a product called We Fit? You've heard of the We Fit. We Fit was the most popular. They saw what we did and they said, gotta jump on that. And they went to town on it and did very well. Now, because the category did well, other publishers got interested in forming relationships. So we got approached by a publisher, Ubisoft, one of the largest in the world, European company. And we did a second title, this time with a publisher. So we got a little money and strength behind us. This was our second title, called My Fitness Coach.
Wow, you are my kind of client. Never late and always here. Time to get that body warmed up. Let's do it. Keep a nice flat back. Lift your knee higher to increase your intensity. All right, great job.
Okay, so that was the second version. That's My Fitness Coach. It was a million seller, produced in 8 languages around the globe, and sold so well that Ubisoft said, we want to continue this relationship, let's do another one, which led to our third title. This time, the marketplace is 2008, 2009 now. The marketplace is mature. There are lots of competitors out there now, lots of different games on the shelf. And so they had to take advantage of some new technology that was coming available in form of cameras and leverage a marquee name. So we'll go to the third. You can see video gets better looking.
I'm Jenny McCarthy. I want to personally introduce you to the Your Shape video game. As you probably know, I'm a working mom, constantly running around for my job or literally after my son. So I've had a hard time finding a workout routine that can fit my busy life and meet my personal fitness goals. That's why I partnered with Ubisoft to create an interactive fitness product that is personalized to you, so you can achieve your specific fitness goals no matter where you're starting from or how far you want to go. The game assesses your fitness level, your goals, and your needs to create your personalized fitness program. The camera that comes with the game is so great, you just plug it in and it works like that. Then the camera scans your body.
Okay, so you get the general idea, and that was another million seller. So all told, we sold over 3 million units in 8 different languages over a period of time. Very good success story. And so now, the other thing that was interesting was over the 3 titles, we were one of the highest ranked video games ever on Amazon, either Amazon.com in the US or Amazon in the UK. If you were to Google or search for one of the names of the titles, you'd find literally thousands of reviews with an average of a 4.5 star out of 5 rating. It's really unheard of in the video game community. And these were people that literally, this bottom part here is probably the most interesting part. This notion of a virtual fitness coach, it became what we were known for, this notion of creating a digital character that people listened to and treated like they were real. If you read those reviews, you say, I can't let Maya down. I don't want to miss my workout today. She got me back in shape after I had my baby, or I used it to get ready to go back for my Army training. All these different stories were just magical to read. So the product was wonderfully successful and created this notion of a character. And in that third title, Your Shape, you saw that she mentioned a camera. This camera was some learning for us. The idea, there's this term called suspension of disbelief. The idea that if you immerse yourself in a video game, you kind of forget where you're at for a little while and get so engaged with the product that you suspend the fact that you've got a screaming kid over here and you've got laundry to fold over here. I'm focusing on myself for the next 30 minutes. And that notion really took off and was part of the kind of magic that we created. This other idea of making something that is typically challenging, exercise, getting people off the couch to exercise, is number one, it's a hard thing to do. And so to gamify that experience and make it challenging, or try and tap into that person's personal motivation by creating something custom for them, and then gamifying it, making it a little more fun with interesting music and other things that I'm going to share, was super interesting. Now I start with a lot of information here, and we're going to move a little quicker after this. But this brings us to about 2010, and the CEO of the company had tapped me and said, we've done great up to this point. We're experiencing some challenges now. We have a real challenge with making money. If you think about the model, the idea of selling a video game, it's when you walk into Best Buy, $60 on the shelf. When you split it up between the three players that are there, the software developer gets $4 to $5 tops. So, in order to make money, you've got to sell millions, and you got to pump out the hits year after year after year after year. And so you're almost like a rock band, right? You think about it, you got to pump them out. So that was a challenge. Lots of competition. So the idea I was kind of presented with was, if you help us figure out what to do next with the company, where do we go? And there were lots of opportunities, and we had to kind of narrow it down and figure it out. One opportunity was to figure out you saw the camera. That was just a straight out video camera. There was new technology coming available at the time, 2010, 2011, that we learned about before it shipped. How many are familiar with the Kinect sensor from Microsoft? Right? Some of you are. The idea of it being a 3D motion camera. It's not just a camera that you can take pictures with or video. It can actually identify the space that you're in. It can identify a human form. It can track your body in 3D space. All of these things were part of this 3D motion camera that was coming available from companies like Microsoft and PrimeSense, which would allow us to count your repetitions, to tell you if you're doing it right or if you're doing it wrong. And then if you didn't do it right, you scored points, and points added up. So it was even more gamified. So that made it even more compelling. We learned along the way, while working with PrimeSense, the company that made the guts of the Kinect sensor, they're an Israeli-based company, we learned of an opportunity in China. The Ministry of Culture in China had decreed illegal any game console from the United States. So no Xbox, no PlayStation, and Japan, no Wii allowed in the country for a period of 3 years, leaving an opening for a Chinese company to create a Chinese game console. We got on a plane and we went over to China, and we figured out, is there an opportunity for us to be the fitness game, the sole fitness game on this Chinese game console? And we got that deal done with Lenovo. Lenovo was the company that was doing that. So this is kind of the next generation of the product, where we're now in the Chinese marketplace. Rather than bore you with the Chinese version, I'm going to show you the English version of the Chinese trailer. You can see the products starting to iterate a little bit.
Their workouts. Will it be a little tough love to get them started? Help cranking up their fitness level? A workout partner who won't flake out? Or just a serious butt kicking? Come find me in the new Maya Fitness Studio, and I'll design a workout tailored specifically for you and your abilities. I'll work out with you anytime, anywhere. Home, gym, it's totally your call. I'll motivate you to push yourself and reward you for your efforts.
And get this, with my motion cam, I can even tell if you're slacking off or need help with a move. Want to see more of me in action? I'll give you the full story.
So, you get the idea. So we did that deal. We also explored the Asian smart TV manufacturers. So we had conversations with Samsung and Haier and Hisense and Singtel to strike deals to incorporate our game into their smart televisions because apps were becoming preloaded in some of those systems. We also explored a partnership with Intel. Intel was in the fitness industry and interested in what we were doing because we were based on Intel technology. So I'm going to show you an example of what we did with Intel.
Would you like to differentiate your fitness center?
Again, not much difference in the product here. Keep that in mind.
Then make their training more fun, more effective, and more personalized. You can achieve all those things by providing each member with a personal trainer. Unfortunately, that's cost prohibitive for most. But now, there's a cost-effective way to deliver the benefits of a personal trainer to every person in your fitness center. MyaFit, the world's first digital fitness trainer from Grispon Design. The MyaFit training station is a revolutionary piece of fitness equipment, employing a 3D sensor to monitor a user's exercise form in real time, allowing the program to score routines, count repetitions, correct technique flaws, and even praise users, whether they're performing yoga, cardio, or strength training. The MyaFit training station combines a simple, intuitive...
So, again, you get the idea. Again, not much difference in the product, but slightly different industry. We even tried examples of a consumer relationship with Asus, the computer manufacturer, and we even tried and experimented in the corporate wellness marketplace on the campus at Google in some of their fitness, some of their wellness centers. Product altogether not that different, but we did in some cases have to build hardware, as you saw, with the Intel related stuff, but none of this took off. Like we generated money in most of these. These were all either trials or partnerships that had revenues, but really wasn't exploding like we wanted it to. We in the background had been doing some research and working with Oregon Health Sciences University, OHSU. The company was headquartered in Portland, and Intel Digital Health Labs, which was located in Portland. We began to do some research, and over the time that we were experimenting with all of this, we were doing some work with them in the background, and it started to become pretty clear to me initially that we should be looking at healthcare, and we shouldn't be focusing on this stuff. Healthcare, there's nothing really in the space like this, and this is an opportunity, and I tried to convince my other team members that this was something that we should focus on. It took a while, and in fact, I'm going to just move ahead to the next slide. I couldn't get them to make that move until I found an initial customer. And rather than do a small trial or find a decent-sized customer, the challenge was that we landed not only a big fish, we landed a whale as our first customer. Genesis Rehab Services was looking for a way to automate a falls prevention program in their 400 plus senior living facilities, whether it was skilled nursing facilities, assisted living centers, retirement communities across the country. And we could do that. We just need to change some of the content, and we needed to change a few things up. But when that happened, when we got them to commit, I got everyone else on the team to say, yes, we'll commit to doing this, and then we started to shift and focus exclusively on healthcare. And during that time, I also became a board member and also became an investor in the company. We needed some additional capital. And so here's an example. I'm just going to run this video so you can see what the Genesis product looked like. Again, you see some iteration in the product.
The Balance in Action Virtual Trainer is the latest addition to Genesis's successful Balance in Action Fall Prevention Program. Using leading-edge technology, the Connect for Windows sensor incorporates 3D mapping and motion tracking to monitor movements of the client. The prescriptive software then interactively guides users through a customized workout designed by a physical therapist. The session begins with an assessment battery consisting of 5 evidence-based physical performance measures, which are then entered into the system. The program calculates the client's vitality index, a formula Genesis developed to predict an individual's fall risk.
So you get the idea. The marketing of this now has changed completely. Now you hear all the lingo and how it's changed from consumer-oriented now. Now it's B2B to C kind of a model. So there's that shift going on with the product on top of some iterations. There were some things that we had to do to make sure that it worked properly in the industry. We first of all discontinued all fitness game development, and we're focused specifically on healthcare. We had to think about hardware now. These were going to get put in lots of different facilities, so we had to make sure that it was hospital grade, that the cart was movable, that it supported all the security and privacy requirements. We had to take everything off the game console and off the PC and stick it in the cloud and make it HIPAA secure. We had to make sure that the clinician could prescribe. I have an athletic background, so I have been to physical therapy enough to know that typically most people went home with a piece of paper in their hands, and so you needed specific exercises, and we needed to incorporate those exercises, rehab exercises, instead of fitness exercises into the game. We had to make sure that this could be prescribed from a clinician to a patient, that the clinician could log in, and that looks different than when you log in as a patient. And we had to make sure there was proper administrative control. We had to make sure that there was appropriate reporting and that the content was appropriate. We had to make sure that the FDA was supportive of what we did. We examined it early on, and we learned that we fell into a category where we were considered a medical device, but we didn't have to file because we were in an area called enforcement discretion. And in essence, what that meant was you're considered a medical device, but you're also very safe. And we were clearly called out in the language. And so we chose to follow the enforcement discretion language, and we didn't file. There were some of our competitors that did, and that was their competitive advantage. So when you make a product change like this and you make a pivot going from fitness into digital health, there's a whole change in philosophy that you have to make about how you promote your product, how you talk about your product, how you message your product. So this is kind of a branding and communication challenge that you were faced with along the way, and this was fun. We kind of wanted to leverage the history that we had, but we also wanted to make sure that people understood that we're now in the healthcare industry and we're here to stay. And so we rebranded from the original company name Grispon Design. We changed our company name to Respond Well. And to reinforce that, again, with a small budget, we had to take advantage of some of our creativity and create kind of an explainer video that kind of introduced us to the world.
Sticking to a daily rehab routine is hard. When the routine isn't followed, it leads to incorrect healing, more visits to the therapist, and costly readmission. So how can a rehab routine be engaging and effective? By encouraging play. At Respond Well, we're making rehab easier by activating patient intent through entertainment, challenges, and rewards. Our unique platform enables physical therapists to create a personalized rehab program while using the Microsoft Kinect sensor to track patient performance. Here's how it works. Patients start with a visit to the physical therapist where they complete an initial assessment. The therapist can then prescribe a personalized program using proven methods from our growing database of more than 650 movements. The Microsoft Kinect sensor watches and evaluates technique as the patient performs the therapy, granting points for proper movement while providing feedback to correct improper form. Performance data is collected from multiple devices and securely shared with the patient's existing health record. The data produces patterns of patient behavior and helps the therapist make more effective decisions about the patient's care. The system can also be accessed away from the clinic, allowing the patient to perform their rehab from the comfort of their own home, even without a Kinect sensor. Our adaptive software follows your health state from recovery to maintenance. By combining our multi-segment platform with remote monitoring, rehab becomes easier and more personalized for the patient, ultimately leading to greater healing and better health. Learn more at respondwell.com.
Half the room had smirks or grins on their faces from what you were just looking at. So this is the kind of engagement that we wanted. This was entertaining, this was interesting, and you're attacking a big challenge within the healthcare industry. Most people that got prescribed rehab didn't do it. 80% didn't do it. So anything you could do to ratchet that up, to have people do what they've been asked to do, basically do your homework. Before I see you next time, do your homework. And so we kind of leveraged that capability. Now, the area that we were getting into was huge. The rehabilitation industry, the physical therapy industry, is a $29 billion industry. Lots of different segments. And while we got initially into it on the senior care side, there was pull to go into many different directions. Because we partnered with companies like Microsoft and Allscripts, we got exposure to some interesting opportunities. They would walk us into opportunities. We could stand on Big Brother's shoulder, in essence, and they would walk us into opportunities. And we had opportunities in the pulmonary space for COPD patients. They needed to do rehab. For stroke, people needed to do rehab when they have a stroke. For cardiac patients, for prevention of either preventing injury or just staying healthy, even chronic conditions like diabetes or obesity. These were all rehab opportunities. And the way we positioned ourselves, because we're old software guys, we thought, well, we can do all this. This is a platform. We can customize whatever you need. And so we got customers like Carolina's healthcare system. We did a pulmonary module for them. We were doing a stroke module with someone else. So we had all these opportunities, but it was spreading us out too thin. And while it was generating revenue for us, that kept the doors open, right? We still hadn't taken off. But it did put money in our pockets, and we did learn a lot along the way. With this set of marquee customers and partners, we stayed alive. And in fact, we started getting recognized. With the branding that we were doing, we were getting recognized and getting selected to do presentations at the Cleveland Clinic Innovation Summit and at the JP Morgan Annual Healthcare Conference. We got an award from Microsoft for being an innovation, for an innovation category. We were selected to pitch at a Venture Summit at the American Telemedicine Association and at HIMSS, which is a tech healthcare industry trade show. We also knew that we couldn't navigate healthcare alone, and so we joined an accelerator program called Startup Health out of New York City. We didn't have to move anywhere. Most of the team we were kind of spread out. Some of the team was in Portland, some was in Grand Rapids. I was physically here in St. Louis the bulk of that time. But that helped us a ton. It opened up doors for us. Again, it was another one of those marquee partners that helped us build our brand image. We got some nice press, we got some nice awards, and that was not without recognition by our competitors. While we were the first, we were not the only. Quick followers that take advantage of what we were doing. One, it wasn't rocket science to use video game technology and stick it together with a sensor to do something that's customizable for prescriptive purposes. Couple of big competitors in that space were Reflection Health and Gentronics. And these are guys that, this is a 10-person shop, one in California, one in Southern California, another 12-person shop in Canada. But we knew these guys in and out because it gets to be small really quick when you're a startup and someone's doing almost exactly what you're doing. But that didn't scare us. That actually validated what we were doing. And so we got close to them. We got to know those guys. And we thought it was great. They get success, that's more success for us. And it's a big enough marketplace that sometimes we were competing against each other and sometimes not. There were others that were competing in the space that weren't using sensor technology. We like to promote ourselves as one, we were the single one that was able to take full advantage of the Kinect sensor and provide multiple types of rehab deployments. So whether it was falls prevention or orthopedics or pulmonary or stroke, whatever it was, you could buy one platform as a hospital system and you could use it lots of different places. Well, that ended up, while we were promoting that as true, that was also a challenge for us because everybody else was kind of focused in a different area. And so we began to observe that. We also began to learn a little bit more about that big $29 billion physical therapy industry. The bulk of that pie of 29 billion, about 11 billion of it goes to orthopedics. And so we started to understand that the physical therapy industry, one, is really tough because margins are very thin in that business, and they're not typically the decision maker when it comes to rehab. They get a prescription from a doctor or an orthopedic surgeon. So we learned that the orthopedic surgeon was the one that had all the control about prescribing your routine. They're the executor of that routine. So once we learned that, we began to narrow our focus from everything down to orthopedics. This is what our story and product looked like once we began to narrow it down to orthopedics.
I'm Peter Vassu, and I'm a general orthopedic surgeon with Grand Rapids Orthopedics. We're a general orthopedic practice. We treat all musculoskeletal conditions, but we have a specialty interest in sports medicine. Today, we've used the Grispon well for knee ACL procedures, but we hope to expand that to many other additional procedures. I think the Grispon well system will not only help with compliance with physical therapy, it will also help to make it more convenient for patients who are driving great distances or don't have a next-door therapy location to attend therapy and be more compliant with their rehab regimen.
I'm Julie Garrison, and I have had chronic knee pain for a couple of years. I would say the ability to utilize the system whenever I wanted to kept me pushing forward in completing the exercises. The point scoring system is a plus. I'm kind of competitive, and so I kind of want to try to keep ratcheting the score up, either on a daily basis or on a weekly basis. I think I'm recovering quicker because I'm more dedicated to doing the exercises every day. It's holding me accountable for performing the exercises, which on the backside, my body's getting better, my legs are getting stronger, and I'm improving. Within a week, I could see a difference in my stability.
So once we narrowed to orthopedics, we began to bring people in that understood the orthopedic space. And they started to tell us not only do we need to focus on the orthopedic space, but we need to focus very narrowly on hip and knee replacements. And we quickly learned that not only was that where a lot of the money was to be made, but there were some changes going on based on the Affordable Care Act. Something called bundled payments were kicking in, and I'm going to explain what that is in a second. So we narrowed our focus, and we also evolved our branding. So the next couple of slides are from some of our pitch decks at that time. So if you think back to my original couple of slides, how this has changed, how the product is iterated, how the message has iterated. Our messaging now is that we enable providers and we empower patients. And our goal is to create this robust total joint replacement solution that gave care teams the ability to be transparent and advance a patient's recovery. And along the way, empower patients to take more control of their health. So that was our messaging, and that resonated with the audience that we were speaking to, which was very busy care teams, doctors and doctors' assistants, and the administrative staff that had to care for the patient after they came back from an operation. You also notice that, I don't know if you noticed it in the video, but we went from that big system that was on a movable tray, it got narrowed down to a box that got delivered to a patient's home that had inside of it a Kinect sensor and a Surface, Microsoft Surface tablet. We learned that while that's super compelling and it was interesting because the Kinect sensor made it so fun and so cool, we also learned that there was a price associated with that. It's friction. It's really hard to have a bank of 20 or 30 of those if you're going to start to really bang out knee replacements. You're going to need 20 or 30 of them. And that's going to cost money. Somebody's got to pay for that. And so we started to think about, do we really need that Kinect sensor? Is that a necessity? Is it a critical component of the solution? And we learned that videotaping is just as compelling and just as much of a useful factor as is the Kinect sensor for a clinician. And so we took advantage of not using the Kinect sensor and using just a video recording of the patient as an option. The other thing that I mentioned, this notion of bundle payments, I mentioned that the Affordable Care Act, in early 2016, what was happening was there was this mandate coming down as part of the Affordable Care Act. Everybody knows today when you go to the doctor, right, it's something called fee for service. You go to the doctor because you're not feeling well, you're going to get a checkup, and you pay them. It's a fee for service. And there was this shift because of Obamacare. There was this shift to go to focus on creating healthy people. Instead of taking care of sick people, we want to create healthy people. And in order to do that, they changed the model. So when we're talking about hips and knees, they created a program called, they created a model for hips and knees that I'll talk about here in just a second. Excuse me. I'm going to move forward because I want to be respectful of time here. Revenue model. 4 different revenue models. The one that we leveraged was the existing bundle payment programs along with the fee-for-service model that we experienced. We also took advantage of the partnership with Philips. Excuse the font change here. But I've fallen in a can't get up. You ever heard of that technology? Philips had some of this technology and was a great reseller of that product. And it, in essence, detected a fall by wearing something around the patient's neck. We, combined with Philips, were able to bundle something that was sold direct to the consumer for post-operative rehabilitation. We sold the product and it was a download to the patient's computer. And that patient then was able to not only take advantage of the medallion that was on, the falls detection medallion, but they were able to prevent from a fall. The final iteration of the product was to be sold to providers, and based on the data that was collected here and here, a clinician could then begin to predict, because of the steps, the number of steps taken, or the gait of a patient, the width, the length of a patient's stride. If that was shortening based on the data that was shown, that was an indication of a potential future or near-term fall. So the notion of first of all, partnering with a big company like Philips to produce a consumer-oriented product was another revenue stream for us on top of the other model of generating money through a bundled payment program. The idea of that bundled payment program was the government says, I'm going to give you, hospital, because I'm Medicaid, I'm going to give you $25,000 to do that knee replacement. That $25,000, if you go over that and spend more than $25,000, you're going to pay a penalty. If you spend less than $25,000, you're going to get a bonus. And so anything that they could do to reduce their costs, reduce the number of visits to a physical therapist, reduce the drugs administered, reduce the amount of time in the hospital, anything that they could do to reduce the cost, they would try to do. And so that's why we were so attractive to becoming part of that bundled payment program, because we were able to demonstrate that rather than spending 90 days in rehab, we could reduce that to 6 weeks. And rather than going to the PT 17 times, you can go 5. And so it took all the variability out of the equation, and for a fixed cost, we said for $500 to $600 per episode of care, that's how much you'd have to pay. So that became very attractive. And along the way, as I said, we beefed up our team. We were able to add additional, because we got investors behind us, because we were generating revenue, we were able to add experts in the orthopedic space, in the payment space. We were able to add physical therapists to the team. We were able to add experts in legal and regulatory and in the insurance space. So that was all wonderful, and we continued to promote our brand, positioning ourselves as a thought leader and an innovator, and we got into Forbes mag. We had Eric Topol, who is a healthcare industry visionary, tweeting about us. We were on stage at the Cleveland Clinic, as I'd mentioned earlier. We were at a couple of different major summits and in certain trade rags that are important to healthcare. That all positioned us and made us, again, we're a team of 12. Made us look and feel bigger than we really were. And again, created a brand that, one, we knew what we were talking about, and two, that we were leading instead of following. This was kind of one of the last things that occurred on the marketing side that kind of told a really great story that was produced by Microsoft. And again, the best part about this, didn't cost us a dime.
Co-founder and CEO of Grispon. We're a tele-rehab company that develops solutions that bring physical therapy to the home. Physical therapy in the home is a new idea, and it's kind of part of this new way of thinking about healthcare that some people call self-care. Self-care is really the idea that people are taking control of their own healthcare, and as a result, expressing a lot more control over the choices they make.
My name is Dave Van Andel. I'm a physical therapist. I own I'm Physical Therapy. Grispon came to me, and they're really interested in what it would look like to inject technology into our field. In a typical scenario, patients might interact with us just when they come in for their appointments. We're giving them exercises, we're giving them homework to do, and we're really trying to give them a plan of care that they follow through with. Utilizing Grispon, we have the ability to do a lot of those things remotely. We have the ability to take a look at their home exercise program. I can basically see the patient 5 days a week. We've got a home therapy kit. It comes with all the equipment packed inside. It's got their Surface Pro and their Connect sensors. Our patients and clients access the Grispon system through the Windows 10 app or on the internet.
The Microsoft assets that are critical to us are certainly in the context of how we collect movement information, but ultimately that information goes to the Azure cloud, and from there we can generate all the reporting information necessary to inform clinicians about patient health.
The data gets us to a place where we start to get informed on what works best in terms of our care. So are there exercises that work best for a particular condition? How do the demographics of a particular data set cross-pollinate with my clinical expertise and information? I really do see this kind of evolution of our practice as being able to objectify the things that we currently do on intuition.
The future of healthcare is driven by the underlying changes that are happening in technology, in artificial intelligence, in devices, in access to data in the cloud. Combined, they all create really significant change.
We have the ability to create a much stronger tie than has ever been there. This technology is helping me reimagine what my relationship with my clients will be in the future.
It's something that I know connects people. And not a lot of technology really does that, so that's something that really excites me.
So that one of the best parts about having a relationship with Microsoft was that they were able to do things like that. They had us in their booths at some of these large trade shows, and we leveraged that. We were at the large healthcare conference called HIMSS. We were in the Philips booth and the Microsoft booth simultaneously, and we had scheduled meetings with a couple of device companies. One of them was a company called Zimmer Biomet. Zimmer Biomet, if you're unfamiliar with them, I wasn't terribly familiar with them. The only reason I knew who Zimmer was my wife worked for them about 4 years ago. Zimmer is a publicly traded $8 billion medical device company, and their focus, and they're the market leader in hip and knee replacements. And they're trying to figure out how to go digital. And they could either build it or they could buy it. They bought it. They met with us. They had interest in acquiring us. And within a very quick period of time, we got into negotiations with them, and within 3 months, we had a deal papered, and our assets were acquired.